Hi, this is the AI Storyteller. I'm Mark. The featured work for this issue is the novel The Ancient and Other Times. The author of this book is Olga Tokarczuk, the winner of the 2018 Nobel Prize in Literature and a contemporary Polish novelist. Although Tokarczuk was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2018, the announcement and ceremony took place in 2019. This delay was due to a scandal that occurred within the Nobel Prize organization, leading to a one-year postponement. We will explain this topic in detail later. Let's first delve into Tokarczuk's background and the novel The Ancient and Other Times that we are interpreting for you today. Tokarczuk was born in 1962 and graduated from the Department of Psychology at the University of Warsaw. She initially gained recognition as a poet and didn't publish her first novel, The Journey of the Book Characters, until 1993. However, she immediately won significant literary awards in Poland. In 1996, The Ancient and Other Times was met with widespread acclaim from Polish critics, and the following year, it received Poland's most prestigious literary award, the Nike Award. This work solidified Tokarczuk's position in the Polish literary scene. Tokarczuk's path in novel writing has been consistent. In terms of quantity, she has produced over a dozen novels in just over 20 years, showcasing a prolific output. In terms of quality, she boasts an impressive record of awards both domestically and internationally, securing a strong foothold in the literary market. She is not an author who solely follows a niche path. However, what's most important is that she is an author who knows exactly what she wants. Her distinctive personal style has been evident since her debut work. Her narrative imagination was particularly highlighted in the Nobel Prize citation, expressing itself as a passion for encyclopedic knowledge, crossing various boundaries. It goes as far as stating that she has turned crossing boundaries into a form of life. How do we understand this statement? By delving even briefly into Tokarczuk's works, we can discover that her novels are filled with a variety of fantastical ideas and mystical elements. She seamlessly navigates between modern psychoanalysis and ancient myths, science and religion, fragmented storytelling and rational speculation, reality and dreams. In the following sections, we will follow Tokarczuk's spiritually infused narrative style as we navigate between dreams and reality. What's even more important is that this fluid navigation provides us with a magical perspective, allowing us to re-examine the destinies of individuals within complex contexts. The featured work for this issue is the novel Primeval and Other Times. The author of this book is Olga Tokarczuk, the winner of the 2018 Nobel Prize in Literature and a contemporary Polish novelist. Although Tokarczuk was awarded the Nobel Prize in Literature in 2018, the announcement and ceremony took place in 2019. This delay was due to a scandal that occurred within the Nobel Prize organization, leading to a one-year postponement. We will explain this topic in detail later. Let's first delve into Tokarczuk's background and the novel Primeval and Other Times that we are interpreting for you today. Tokarczuk was born in 1962 and graduated from the Department of Psychology at the University of Warsaw. She initially gained recognition as a poet and didn't publish her first novel, The Journey of the Book Characters, until 1993. However, she immediately won significant literary awards in Poland. In 1996, Primeval and Other Times was met with widespread acclaim from Polish critics, and the following year, it received Poland's most prestigious literary award, the Nike Award. This work solidified Tokarczuk's position in the Polish literary scene. Tokarczuk's path in novel writing has been consistent. In terms of quantity, she has produced over a dozen novels in just over 20 years, showcasing a prolific output. In terms of quality, she boasts an impressive record of awards both domestically and internationally, securing a strong foothold in the literary market. She is not an author who solely follows a niche path. However, what's most important is that she is an author who knows exactly what she wants. Her distinctive personal style has been evident since her debut work. Her narrative imagination was particularly highlighted in the Nobel Prize citation, expressing itself as a passion for encyclopedic knowledge, crossing various boundaries. It goes as far as stating that she has turned crossing boundaries into a form of life. How do we understand this statement? By delving even briefly into Tokarczuk's works, we can discover that her novels are filled with a variety of fantastical ideas and mystical elements. She seamlessly navigates between modern psychoanalysis and ancient myths, science and religion, fragmented storytelling and rational speculation, reality and dreams. In the following sections, we will follow Tokarczuk's spiritually infused narrative style as we navigate between dreams and reality. What's even more important is that this fluid navigation provides us with a magical perspective, allowing us to re-examine the destinies of individuals within complex contexts. Let's start by briefly understanding the overall structure of Primeval and Other Times. In the book, Olga Tokarczuk constructs a fictional village named Primeval. Primeval is located at the center of the universe, guarded by angels on all sides, distant from cities, and bordered by a forest. It embodies the typical Polish village landscape. Primeval is not large in size, and according to the novel, if you walk quickly from north to south through Primeval, it would take about an hour. The same goes for walking from east to west. The entire novel is divided into over 80 sections, each with a uniform title format consisting of a noun followed by time. For instance, Primeval's Time and Time of the Wicked. This means that the story of Primeval is composed of over 80 times, each with a different focus, mostly involving characters from the village of Primeval. Others are surreal entities, like ghosts, deities, and angels as imagined by people. Some are highly abstract concepts, like the section titled Time of the Game, which features a fictional set of rules governing the universe. These more than 80 times are arranged mostly in chronological order. However, Tokarczuk deliberately blurs the sense of time within the narrative, with few distinct time markers. For instance, around 3/4 into the book, a character hears someone say, "Stalin is dead." Using this marker, we can infer that it's around 1953. The period described in the book corresponds to the era of Soviet-controlled People's Republic of Poland. If we connect all the time markers in the book, we can roughly outline a timeline that corresponds to Poland's history from World War I to the 1980s. However, for most of the novel, the historical tumult serves as a distant backdrop. Through Tokarczuk's implicit descriptions, we can glimpse the shadows of events like World War I, the Great Depression, World War II, Nazi occupation of Poland, and Soviet rule after the war. These events are significant, deeply painful memories in Poland's history, yet when the author references them in the novel, she does so with an exceptionally concise and serene tone, as if casually mentioning them. For example, the novel tells the story of a Nazi officer named Kurt who comes to the village of Primeval. Over time, he becomes accustomed to the village, and local children play with him. The elderly woman living next door, who owns more than a dozen dogs, smiles at him silently. Later, he hears from his superiors that this place should be razed to the ground to establish a new order. At times, he finds this idea reasonable, while at other times, he experiences a disturbing thought, feeling he should go home and not disturb the tranquility of the land. Suddenly, one day, Bolshevik artillery shells fall, causing the neighboring dogs to go wild, and they attack Kurt's convoy. Soldiers begin shooting at the dogs, and the old woman rushes to save them. Kurt feels he should end this senseless shooting, but he suddenly thinks, there is no way back now, this world is doomed. He proceeds to shoot the familiar old woman. In just a few strokes, the narrative vividly portrays how a flesh-and-blood ordinary person is drawn into the war machine and instantly transforms into a devil. Following this, the novel shifts to a divine perspective, where God witnesses Kurt's sudden death. We know that the God's eye view is a common narrative technique in fiction, referring to an omniscient and omnipotent third-person perspective. In most novels, God himself doesn't appear. However, in this book, God frequently interjects with commentary when characters act or contemplate. Returning to Kurt, he is tasked with monitoring Primeval, observing every detail of the village daily. He finds enjoyment in this task and even dreams of someday bringing his family to settle here. God saw Kurt's thoughts like looking at a map and allowed him to stay in Primeval forever. God picked one from those numerous coincidental bullets. People often say that this bullet was sent by God. This is the typical approach of the novel, to touch upon places that others might dwell on repeatedly, to avoid getting entangled in specific realistic details. It employs a concise and beautiful style with strong undertones of irony, swiftly skirting the whirlpool of history, stepping out of the ordinary perspective, and choosing new angles to re-examine history. As we mentioned earlier, the stories in the novel essentially correspond to Poland's historical journey from World War I to the 1980s. Throughout the 20th century, Poland experienced tumultuous ups and downs, burdened by deep suffering and complex historical factors. These have been enduring themes in literature. A glimpse into Polish history reveals various sharp contradictions. For instance, many Slavic people reside within Poland's borders, and the majority of Slavic people worldwide adhere to Eastern Orthodoxy. However, around 90% of Poland's population is Roman Catholic. While both Eastern Orthodoxy and Roman Catholicism are branches of Christianity and share a belief in God, there have been historical conflicts between them. The role of God in Primeval and other times takes on a particularly delicate and unique significance. For instance, the concept of noble democracy has had a profound impact on Poland's history, where the king's power was limited, and the nobility held significant authority and privileges. This complex relationship between the king and the nobles often resulted in indecision on critical national matters, causing the nation to miss out on numerous developmental opportunities. A more tangible contradiction is Poland's geographical position. Poland finds itself sandwiched between two major powers, Germany and Russia. Although Poland once held significant influence, it eventually became a battleground for conflicts. In modern times, Poland tragically repeated the cycle of occupation, independence, and subsequent reoccupation. The conflicts between different ethnic groups, the devastating toll of warfare, prolonged ideological turmoil and divisions, these have all contributed to the suffering of the Polish people. Prior to the 1990s, Polish realism literature often carried strong political undertones, heavily influenced by the ideological struggles of the Cold War era. Both official and opposition literature exhibited pronounced political stances in their works, often appearing starkly black and white, which could undermine the literary quality of the pieces. However, the younger generation of Polish writers, represented by Tokarczuk, sought to forge a new path, downplaying rigid and symbolic history, avoiding entanglement in the relentless evaluation of Poland's historical deeds and misdeeds. They drew inspiration from myths and folklore, creating their own blend of reality and illusion, using this new approach to narrate Polish history. With such intentions, Primeval and Other Times is shrouded in a layer of mysterious and ambiguous mist. Familiar mundane elements are beautifully estranged. In this novel, houses possess their own souls, clothing has its own memories, animals harbor their own dreams, and underground mushrooms have a tightly guarded kingdom. This isn't merely anthropomorphism of living or non-living entities, nor is it a mere imitation of Latin American magical realism. We know that magical realism, epitomized by writers like Gabriel Garcia Marquez, often employs magical elements to greatly exaggerate a certain aspect of real life. To some extent, Tokarczuk's effort to blur the boundaries between nearly everything is intended to create an illusion of equality among all beings within her text. In this world, even God can experience vexation, and ordinary individuals sporadically radiate a certain divinity. Humans, animals, plants, and even many inanimate objects all share primeval space and time. Through this egalitarian narrative approach, the author aims to restore human sensitivity to these commonplace things, emphasizing the significance of experience itself, whether it's the experience of the material world or that of the spiritual realm. With such an attitude, this novel adopts a particularly calm and detached tone in its narrative of history. The grand histories played out on battlefields and in corridors of power seem to both brutally shape the destinies of the beings in Primeval and remain forever isolated from it. History becomes a reflection, a dream, a powerful yet perpetually distant background melody. Of course, even though intertwined with other living and non-living entities on the same plane, human fate occupies the largest portion within this novel. The human stories unfolding in Primeval span roughly 3 generations, primarily focused on 2 families. The author doesn't delve too deeply into the identities and pasts of each character upon their introduction. Often, we must deduce various details based on subtle behaviors and psychological activities of these characters. The novel begins with the introduction of a young man named Mihu, hailing from a prosperous family. He was taken by Russian soldiers to participate in World War I in 1914, leaving behind his pregnant wife, Noviva. Soon, Noviva gives birth to their daughter, Misha. During the bleak war years, Noviva loses contact with Mihu and forms an affectionate bond with a Jewish young man named Eli. Mihu miraculously returns after the war ends, but by then, Noviva is pregnant with Eli's child. The two continue the facade of their original family pattern in unspoken agreement. Their son, Isidore, is born into this ambiguous situation. The other family is considerably poorer. Old Bosky spent his entire life installing wooden tiles on others' roofs, while his son Paul harbored ambitions beyond the family trade. He aspired to be a person of status from a young age. Striving for advancement, and hoping to alter his fate through knowledge, he also sought a shortcut by pursuing Misha, the eldest daughter of the affluent Mihu family. Mihu watches as his daughter gradually becomes a small part of Paul's ambitious life plan, and eventually accepts him as his son-in-law. Thus, the two families become connected. As time passes, German and then Russian troops arrive. World War II unleashes a series of calamities that engulf Poland, including the small village of Primeval. Amid the war, Mihu shelters a Jewish person pursued by German forces. After the war, Paul struggles to make a living within the People's Republic, his once ambitious dreams turning into pragmatism and a hazy pursuit of pleasure. He becomes entangled with various women outside, growing distant from Misha, who bore him several children. These characters age and pass away one after another. The novel's final scene features Paul's daughter, Adelka, returning from afar to the village of Primeval to visit her ailing father. In a murmur, Adelka says, "If you need me to stay," but Paul turns his face toward the window, gazes through the dirty glass at the orchard, and says, "I don't need anything anymore. I'm not afraid of anything anymore." Apart from these two families entwined in the vortex of history, Primeval Village is home to several unforgettable characters, with 2 among them taking center stage. One of them is named Weak Ear, who wandered into Primeval from afar during a certain summer. She is strikingly beautiful, alluring, and rebellious, driven by a pursuit of equality, freedom, and independent thought. Engaging in romantic affairs with the men of Primeval, she refuses to be confined by any restraints. She never consents to lying down on the ground in the usual way, often questioning them, "Why should I lie beneath you? We are equals." She becomes an adversary of almost all the wives in Primeval when they discover she's pregnant with a child of unknown paternity. They advise her to give the child up for adoption after birth, a suggestion she firmly rejects. Weak Ear would rather forever carry the stigma of being unconventional, roaming the forests and fields with her child. Throughout the novel, Weak Ear's rebellious nature, her image as if coexisting with heaven and earth, and her defiance of conventional norms exude a distinct charm. Another intriguing character is the landowner Popieluski. In the 1910s, his estate fell victim to looting, and he succumbed to depression in his grief. The novel writes, 1918, a time of great potential, referencing the establishment of the Polish Republic by the Social Democrats after World War I. Popieluski once enthusiastically threw himself into social reform, aiming to effectively heal sorrow through work and action. However, after recovering from a bout of pneumonia and venturing outside for the first time, he saw the ugly gray world anew. He realized that the efforts to rebuild everything from last year had been in vain. This novel is replete with such enigmatic sudden turns, refraining from straightforward exposition, instead focusing on metaphors and capturing emotions. However, historical records reveal that in 1919, Poland was thrust into the Polish-Soviet War. In any case, Popieluski's dreams were shattered again, leading him to the epiphany that the biggest hoax of youth is optimism. Subsequently, when we encounter this character once more, he becomes a complex entity, oscillating between seeking solace in frenzied indulgence and immersing himself in his study, attempting to numb himself in the vast ocean of knowledge, while navigating through philosophical contemplations that offer no answers. Segments of fragmented time, a meticulously arranged array of characters and objects, stylized epics and allegories, all enveloped by that enigmatic mist, constitute Primeval and Other Times. The author's skill in constructing the narrative structure and orchestrating language is so remarkable that reading this novel is a peculiar experience, where imagery and music naturally manifest in the mind. Perhaps capturing the essence of this novel, the words of Olga Tokarczuk herself are most apt. I always wanted to write such a book. A book that can create and describe a world. This story is about the birth, growth, and death of this world, much like all living beings. Finally, let's discuss some of the real-world challenges that the Nobel Prize in Literature has encountered over the past 2 years since Olga Tokarczuk was awarded the prize. As we know, the Nobel Prize's scope theoretically covers literature from all corners of the world. This implies that each year, the judges have to contend with a diverse array of genres and languages. While it might be an exaggeration to claim that the Nobel Prize is merely a politically correct game of permutations and combinations, it is true that the judging panel faces an increasingly difficult task in balancing various factors. The trust in the Nobel Prize has been eroded over the years, and the committee has faced mounting criticism, which is also a reality. In 2018, the Nobel Prize in Literature was hit by a scandal that led to a significant crisis of trust. One of the judges, poet Katarina Frossensen's husband, was implicated in a sexual misconduct scandal. The situation escalated, and accusations even surfaced that her husband had leaked the winner's name to a betting company in advance. This led to resignations within the Nobel Prize in Literature judging committee and the decision to postpone the award for a year. Olga Tokarczuk received the Nobel Prize for Literature in 2018, but the announcement and awarding were delayed until 2019. What needs to be addressed isn't just the delay of a year's prize, but more crucially, the restoration of public trust in the fairness of the Nobel Prize. Nevertheless, despite these controversies, the Nobel Prize in Literature remains the most influential award in the literary world, still regarded as a paramount standard within the realm of serious literature. This enduring influence can be attributed to 3 main reasons. Firstly, the Nobel brand carries significant weight due to its influence in fields like natural sciences and politics, and the literary award is also held in high regard. Secondly, the comprehensive nature of the Nobel Prize, while leading to operational challenges, aligns well with psychological tendencies. Unlike some other literary awards, there is only one Nobel laureate each year from a diverse range of countries and disciplines, creating an annual focal point of discussion. The relatively vague criteria and less transparent rules of the Nobel Prize paradoxically stimulate curiosity among the audience and enhance suspense. Thirdly, compared to scientific awards, literary works seem to be more relatable to the general public. The Nobel Prize continues to transcend national, racial, and literary boundaries, and recent efforts to address criticisms and broaden perspectives contribute to the creation of a grand literary community. This dissemination strategy and impact are hard to match for other awards that emphasize specialization. It can be argued that in the journey to canonize serious literature, there is currently nothing more potent and effective than the Nobel Prize in Literature. With a broader understanding of the backdrop of the Nobel Prize, let's take another look at Olga Tokarczuk and grasp the significance of her win in the contemporary literary world. Before the Nobel Prize was announced, many predictors believed that, based on previous trends, there was a higher chance for a non-English female author to be recognized. As it turned out, the keywords non-English and female author did indeed hold true. Despite disappointing many readers by surpassing the highly favored Canadian novelist Margaret Atwood, Olga Tokarczuk was far from an obscure writer within literary circles. Her strong competitiveness was already evident when she won the International Booker Prize in 2018. Considering both authors as female writers, from the perspective of the judging panel, Tokarczuk from Eastern Europe, a region that had been overlooked for years, was more in need of a Nobel Prize compared to Atwood, who already held a firmly established classic status. This decision not only aligned with the Nobel Prize's consistent approach but also suited the current situation where the Nobel Prize judging committee needed to rebuild its reputation after a crisis. In conclusion, let's recap the key points from today's discussion. Firstly, Polish author Olga Tokarczuk won the 2018 Nobel Prize in Literature for her work, in which she fabricated a village called Primeval and constructed its story through more than 80 segments of time. The stories in the novel roughly correspond to Poland's historical trajectory from World War I to the 1980s. Secondly, the distinctive narrative style of the novel involves touching upon certain aspects briefly, avoiding entanglement in specific real-life details. Instead, it employs concise and aesthetically pleasing prose with strong satirical undertones to navigate through historical whirlpools, offering fresh perspectives on history. Thirdly, Polish realism literature was once deeply political. The younger generation of writers, represented by Tokarczuk, seeks to downplay rigid and symbolic historical narratives, moving away from the obsession with evaluating Poland's historical deeds and misdeeds, and instead drawing inspiration from myths and folklore. Lastly, Tokarczuk aims to create an illusion of equality among all living beings in her text. By employing this egalitarian narrative approach, the author strives to restore humanity's sensitivity to everyday phenomena and emphasizes the importance of experience itself. Well, that concludes the content for this episode. If you enjoyed my video, please click like, subscribe to my channel, and share it with your friends. Thank you.